I am very much enjoying Diablo 4, but it feels unfinished, meaning it feels like a beta version, a limited edition that's very barren when it comes to features. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Gyro, and even as someone who only got one character to level 50 and a whole bunch of others to level 30, I've been spending quite a lot of time in the game. It's just how I play. I go broad before I go very deep, and this is simply my impression. I do love the game. I think it has a massive potential and I am enjoying it to a major extent, but I thought that I'm going to release this video and share my early impressions from Diablo 4, like a lot of other creators and fans of the game very positively are sharing these days. So first of all, I find the builds available to us, how we can build our characters, very basic, too simplified. It is really bare bones. Of course, it will never compete with something as deep and broad as Path of Exile, with its massive skill tree, with its massive build-orientated kind of world, I suppose, how the game works. But forget about Path of Exile. Even if we go back to Diablo 3 and remember how it was in Diablo 3, and no, I'm not going to go back and count the number of, I don't know, quests and builds and extra augmentations of abilities, but even just by high level memory, yes, they had it differently laid out and presented core abilities and augmentations of different kind that you could do to those abilities, but it feels, at least I remember, and it feels to me like there were more of those in Diablo 3, even in Diablo 3. Forget about Path of Exile, yeah? And on top of that, I also remember that in Diablo 3 you could have a massive selection of passives, which also created even extra layer of this interest and complexity of how you could go about making your build even more different. And this brings us to another meat and potatoes, which is around the loot of the game, and legendary loot very specifically. So I find it so far, once again, I'm not in nightmare difficulties and all that kind of stuff. I expect you to tell me that, but even as an fairly early kind of player into Diablo, I'm still Diablo 4, I'm still thinking that it is very barren. There is just not all that much to be even excited about as far as abilities are concerned of legendary powers and variety of loot is concerned. So you look at the Codex of Power, and it is very barren, different from different class to a different class. Some classes have, seems like, much fewer abilities in that Codex of Power that you can unlock. Some classes have more, but yeah, I'm gonna just refer to it as a handful of potential unlocks you can see there. There are some conveniences of life, such as telling you where to go to unlock some bits and pieces, but it still is not very plentiful and certainly not very exciting. Anything exciting, and there are exciting things, I'm well aware of that, is hidden from your codex view, aka can be found on items and are not shown in the codex, but create this sense of double bottom, if you like, where you can see something in this pot which is very few abilities really to collect, nothing super groundbreaking, nothing super like, oh my god, I can't wait till I find this. But then there are more somewhere else and you can't see them, which creates a separate problem. The problem is extraction of those abilities with the mythic, with the you know, occultist, is unintuitive, and I'll explain to you how. Very simply. Let's say I found an awesome that rogue poison pool legendary, the one that summons poison pools and reduces the removes the cooldown from your poison imbuement abilities. I use it in my builds. I talked about it in my video recently, and I love it, right? So I got a second one and I was like, awesome, let's add this to my Codex of Power. It's logical to assume that you extract this ability and it goes into the Codex of Power, isn't it? Well, it's not. Go try it right now. Go try it right now, then come back and talk to me in the comments down below. You take your Poison Pool ability item, go to your occultist, extract this ability, then go to your Codex of Power thinking that you're gonna take that ability now from your library, so to speak, and imprint it onto something better than the item you found it on, and it's nowhere to be found. It is not in the codex unless I'm doing something horribly wrong, but it is so barren and so basic, this UI, that I can't simply imagine that I'm not seeing it for any particular reason. Especially if I found the item, got the ability, and extracted it, and most importantly, if I'm not supposed to do that, don't let me extract it. But Occultist perfectly destroyed the item, allowed me to extract the ability, it has been extracted, and then it's lost somewhere there. Try and defend this First of all, I'm not attacking. I'm a little bit frustrated from this seemingly unnecessary incompleteness of the game. Like, you know what I mean? But in this particular case, I'm just amazed at how did it pass the quality assurance? How did it go through quality assurance process? It is such a weird, unintuitive, pretty horrible user experience, in all honesty. I'm sorry, Blizzard. Like, I'm a fan, but this is just not okay. And I welcome positive, constructive examples of similar, perhaps, experiences that you had in the game so far, so that we can exchange the opinions on this and perhaps come up with some sort of theories of how to make it better. I always welcome that. Anyway, so another thing is that I found completely 1995 as opposed to 2023 is that in a lot of elements of the UI, including your codex, where you would imagine that it's your library of powers, and you would imagine that if Path of Exile 10 years ago had a progressive search bar that you could search for your talents, your abilities, your items in your, stash, whatever you wanted to, there is no search bar anywhere, at least not in the Codex of Power, that's for sure, and certainly not on your talent tree. So you can't search for whatever the power you're looking for. You can't do any of that. That's like basic user experience stuff lacking from it. It's very, very disappointing. Like, it is disappointing. I make no excuses for feeling the way I feel. I feel frustrated that in 2023, this polished within an inch of its life, best-selling game of like all time or something, getting all these accolades, partly deserved, partly because of this feedback, undeserved, honestly. I can't imagine that they messed up so bad. It's 2023, Blizzard. Like, how did you get away with this murder? Third point, number 3, traveling around the world. They force you to do it. It's obvious and boring. Why boring? Because as you travel around the world, the events, for example, that spawn randomly, at first they're like, wow, how interesting. Oh yes, there is a caravan under siege. But there is like 5 of them, 6 maybe, different events, maybe less, maybe even fewer. Feels like a handful, literally a handful. They are repetitive, unexciting, and unrewarding. Stopping and killing stuff on the way, just trash on the road that stands in the way of your horse, is simply not worth it, as players of Diablo always go where the return on investment is the highest, of experience or loot. So I can't imagine that having this overworld, having the outer world now as a major feature of the game, this more MMO ARPG that Diablo 4 is compared to any other games, or even Path of Exile for that matter, I just can't imagine that they messed this balance up again so much. It is crazy. The world is supposed to make us want to stop and smell the roses, take the scenic route. As it's an open world design game, as I'm already saying. Yet they seem to have failed here, and everyone still rushes to the dungeons for more XP and tries to work out the most optimal farming method rather than to be drawn to the overworld and exploration. That's my impression so far, and again, I'm not level 100, but I don't need to be. I'm level 50, I read what other people say, I'm not just an echo chamber of feedback, this is my impressions, but I spent quite a lot of time in the game to see, and to start feeling, very frustratingly, that it becomes less and less exciting the more time I spend in the game. I'm sorry, that's just honesty. Now, speaking of traveling around the overworld, horse riding is clunky, even somewhat buggy. The horse gets stuck on invisible corners when the road turns. Horse has cooldowns that seem to be unnecessary, and is generally just simply less exciting, this travel, than one would have hoped from a major added feature of the franchise. As we have never had mounts in Diablo franchise before, and they touted this as a massive new feature. Travel, ride, enjoy the spaces, the open spaces. Well, the excitement of that travel only lasts for about 5 minutes, honestly. Like on my rogue, for example, with the special talent build that I was talking to you about, I don't even bother hopping on a horse, because I'm sped up in my running anyway, and in case I need to kill something on the way, just not to fall asleep out of boredom, I find it much easier than traveling on that clunky horse. Again, I'm sorry if it offends someone, but I don't see how it can, because it's just a subjective opinion of a big fan of the game. And finally, just a bonus item here, the social elements, like when you press O and you get all this access to social elements, are basic. Again, very barren, very kind of void of excitement. You can either join a clan or you can create a clan. There seems to be a chat, but there are no communities that you can join without necessarily joining a clan. And in Diablo 3, I remember there was a bunch of these communities without you having to be in any stupid clans, but you could join a community of interest, such as power leveling, such as helping new players, such as something else, yeah? Here, it seems like the world is richer, more open, more MMORPG inspired, yet they got some of these elements that create this world, create this sense of connectivity and being able to chat and make friends and other kind of stuff. Very, very barren and kinda... It reminds me of... it honestly reminds me, and it's off the cuff comment here, not scripted, it reminds me of how Destiny 2 came out. Not recently, but when it just came out, if you've been around, because I was very excited about Destiny 2 when it came out. And it was supposed to be this kind of World of Warcraft in space, yeah, with all these communities, and together you go into groups and stuff like that, and hit the dungeons together and stuff. And it even was lacking a chat at first. And I was like, Bungie, like, honestly, man. And this is how I feel about Blizzard in this particular case. They licked this game within an inch of its life before releasing. Everyone toots Blizzard for its quality and how they will develop a game for 20 years but release it so perfect that every other game would be like, wow, my god, we will never be as good as Blizzard. Well, my friends, like I said, credit where it's due. I credited the game at the very beginning of this video for what it deserves to be credited for. And I absolutely think that they can, and they probably will, because of just the amount of sheer investment and the eyeballs on this now property of Blizzard, right? They will improve it, they will enrich it. But at the moment, I don't know if to get to level 100, to get to the nightmare dungeons and stuff, even if I open some extra difficulty and a different tier of gear, and that's it, nothing else, it's just very hard to stay excited. It's very easy to get excited with Diablo when you just step into it, especially as a fan. And like, it's very easy to get swept away by these very picturesque landscapes and much high fidelity and all this kind of stuff. Like, credit where it's due, guys and girls. But it's hard to stay excited, in my humble opinion. Anyway, take it for what it's worth. Let's talk constructively in the comments down below if you have something constructive to say. Like the video if you liked it, so that more of us can join this little club and this discussion. And yeah, let's play Diablo until we all just fall asleep from boredom, or until Blizzard actually does something about it and releases some sort of open statement and open patch notes. Not just patch notes, it's not about just balancing. I didn't even talk to you about how disbalanced some classes feel versus others. Like I said to you, without going too deeply, I go broad first to sample everything that's on this massive kind of table in front of us, all the dishes, using metaphors here. Anyway, I'll stop ranting. I hope at least some of this resonated with you. Not all of it has to, in order for us to find some nice topic of conversation. Let's keep talking. Let's keep an eye on what Blizzard does further with the Diablo franchise. And I'll be speaking with you again about something else. World of Warcraft. Some videos are coming out very shortly. Or Diablo 4. Absolutely, more videos are coming out soon. Very soon. Goodbye for now. Thanks for watching.